alternate. North 170 from the Rock Road up to Airport Road's backed up. South 170 is an alternate, is on the brakes. Olive down to 64. Westbound 64. Boyle out to Clayton Skinker's jam, but it's slow most of the way through Big Bend. It's slow west of McKnight to 270, most of the way through the valley to the Boone Bridge. From K, most of the way to Winghaven, and then 364 out to 70 after that. South 270 still jammed south of 364 to Ladue. Both directions between Olive and Manchester remain busy, but southbound remains slow all the way down to Tesson Ferry. Westbound 44 is a little busy. Shrewsbury, Laclede Station, the right lane's back up at Lindbergh. Southbound 55, Arsenal down through Bates. You've got delays. Southbound 141, you've got a backup from north of Ladue down to Conway. It's backed up from Helfrich into Valley Park. And then there's a crash. Has a jam back pretty close to Bowles. It's at Oakwood there between San Simeon and Gregory. And then it jams once again around 13th Street down to Romaine Creek. Southbound Telegraph, a solid jam from 255 most of the way to Baumgartner. And eastbound 64 downtown from Jefferson to the Poplars jam. 44 slow at Lafayette. I'm Roger Brand at the Michael's Flooring Outlet.com Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by McKelvey Homes.
Hi, I'm Jim Brennan at McKelvey Homes. Have you always wished for a brand new home in an established neighborhood? Select one of our move-in ready custom homes throughout St. Louis, or we will build on your lot. Visit McKelveyHomes.com and move up to McKelvey.
News, traffic, and the latest from the world of sports. This is Rush Hour Sports on 104.1 FM KMOX.
The world is a vampire sent to drain. Secret destroyer.
Good to be with you on Thursday here on KMOX. It's Rush Hour Sports. Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here for the next hour. And then a really short sports open line again tonight, Matt, with Billikens basketball starting at 6:45.
Yeah, so we'll take you for 40, 45 minutes or so, and then call it a night for that, and we'll listen to Bob Ramsey and Earl Austin Jr. call some SLU hoops.
Nice. I think the Billikens are going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah, they're a lot of their metrics right now have them somewhere between the 45th and 60th best team in college basketball. Still very early to be talking about stuff like that, but they're starting from a good place.
Absolutely. We got a lot to do today. We're going to do some baseball. We had some Cardinals news today. It's not major. Don't get worked up. But there are some guys that were on the 40-man roster that are no longer going to be in the organization. Zach Thompson is one of those guys. Michael Ciani is one of those guys. Rodri Munoz, and then Anthony Veneziano. So those are the four guys that are no longer with the organization. We'll talk a bit about that.
Well, no, a couple of guys stay in the organization.
Not those guys.
Yeah.
They were
right.
Thompson was declared a free agent. Ciani was claimed by the Braves. Munoz claimed by the Reds.
So what the Cardinals said on their roster moves was that Thompson and Veneziano have been outrighted to Memphis.
Yeah, but then it says also on the release they said become MLB free agents.
Okay.
So it said Zach Thompson outrighted and becomes MLB free agent. I'm sorry, MILB free agents. So they're minor league free agents. They're not major league free agents. Anyway.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for those two to stay in the organization.
They could be brought back, yes. But for now, they are according to the press release sent out by the Cardinals, Zach Thompson outrighted becomes MILB free agent. Left-hander Anthony Veneziano outrighted becomes MILB free agent. So could be back, maybe not. We'll see. Hopefully, I would like to see Zach Thompson back because I think he's talented. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy for a while. And we'll get into a little bit more on that as we go. We're going to talk about Albert Pujols, who was passed over in San Diego for Craig Stammen. Longtime reliever, a name that nobody had mentioned for a managerial job, but he had been working in the Padres front office. He gets the job. I want to talk about, Pujols being passed over and some of the reasons why. And we don't know, I don't mean the exact reasons why, but some of the potential reasons why a guy of his magnitude got passed over and didn't even get interviews with some of the teams that were involved. Because I think there's a connecting factor there that we can kind of get into later on. But I want to start with the Blues. Okay. And I want to start with the Blues because I'm still on the bandwagon as far as it's early in the season. I expect them to play better. I do think they're better than their record. But I am so tired of hearing people with that organization talk about how they don't compete hard enough. Braden Shen comes out after they got their asses kicked in D.C. last night. They got smoked by Washington last night. It was an embarrassment. And Jordan Bennington's performance was an embarrassment. And I'm not even talking about the whole hiding the puck in his pants thing. That's a totally separate thing, which is not nearly as big a deal. but the team was brutal last night. And you got the captain of the team who comes out. I'm not blaming Shen at all for what he's saying. What I'm saying is it's a joke that it even has to be said. When the captain of the team has to come out after an ugly loss on the road and say, we don't compete. I'm tired of hearing that. How many years have we heard that? We heard Craig Berube say it. We've heard Montgomery say something similar even this year. We're hearing the captain of the team saying it. And I'm sorry, somebody with the Blues, whether it's Doug Armstrong or Jim Montgomery or a player, somebody's got to explain why. Why don't they compete? Do they not care? Are they lazy? Did they get paid and get fat and happy? Do they not know how? Because what I see is a whole group of passengers.
That's the word.
That the most talented guys on this team are just along for the ride. And that's not okay. I don't care if it's early. I don't care if you end up making the playoffs this year. There's no excuse ever to have to hear that from players on the roster that the team doesn't compete. And if this is a team that doesn't compete, that's flat out on Doug Armstrong. He signed all of these guys that are the top players, gave them all a lot of money, and gave them all no trade clauses, and they don't compete? What are we doing? Why am I hearing this from the captain of the team 14 games into a season?
Yeah. Couple things here. So, and I agree with everything that you're saying, Kevin. It's I was so frustrated with this team last night. Last night to me was the worst loss of the year. It was an embarrassing performance, and was right as things seem to be going back in an upward direction. They just fall back to being the worst version of themselves. And I feel a little bit duped, to be perfectly honest, because before the coaching change last year, one of the main narratives that we went through over and over and over and over again was, can a St. Louis Blues team with the leadership of Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas, and when I say leadership, what I mean is those guys being your best players, those guys being the guys that you
and
are
guys
really
that you're committed to.
Yeah, to score a bunch of goals. When those are kind of the faces of the team, can those guys be on a team, and can they be the ones who can do what you need true leaders to be? And my answer was always no. And then the coaching change happens, and they go on that great run at the end of the year. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe what those guys needed was Jim Montgomery. Montgomery's going to fix this, and these guys are going to find this new gear, and they are going to be pieces that you can truly rely on. And now we're just seeing more of the same. And, Jordan Kyrou as a healthy scratch tonight.
Yeah.
What an embarrassment. He should be embarrassed to be sitting in that press box tonight. Well, that should be an embarrassing moment for him. And it just brings me back to, I don't know if the St. Louis Blues can get over the hump with Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas being these guys that you're relying on to be in the front of the line.
Yeah, and again, those are the guys that are supposed to be your top of the franchise guys at this point. But it doesn't take anybody else off the hook. Justin Falk's been terrible. Buchnevich has been terrible, almost invisible most of the time that he's out there. The guys that are playing well are so few that it's impossible to list everybody that's underachieving. But I think the focus has to be on what we think of as the guys that are the core, the guys that are youngish, that are supposed to be the most talented producers of offense on the team, who are locked in on long-term contracts. And we've been hearing this now for years about how we need to learn to play the 200-foot game. You just change the coach to get different terminology. It's all the same thing. How many times did we hear Berube and now Montgomery, when we heard this even last year? He's just got to use his feet more. But it's not just Jordan Kyrou. It's everything. And the goaltending sucks. If you go look at some of the advanced metrics, forget the regular ones. These two guys both, and it's mostly Binnington. Hofer's barely played because half the time he starts, he gets pulled. But those two guys are bottom 10 goalies, both of them, when it comes to some of the advanced metrics, like goals against better than expected, right? So if you're looking at goals allowed compared to what should be expected based on scoring chances, they're both in the negative. They're both bottom 10 goaltenders. And then you've got Binnington, who's playing like dog crap. he's got the balls to play this game with the puck last night after Alex Ovechkin scores goal number 900? Look, man, I get it. He wasn't trying to steal the puck. I never thought he was. I thought he was just being Jordan Binnington and thinking it's funny and being a smartass and trying to get under the skin of the opponent. Fine. Do that when you're actually playing your position well. Do that when your team's not an embarrassment. They're the worst team in the league right now. They're tied for the fewest points, but they have the worst goal differential in the league. And I get it. Underlying metrics suggest they should be better. Fine. I expect better. But it doesn't change the fact that you're playing like crap and you're going to be going out there and playing games like that. Sit down, man.
I didn't like it. I was in the moment, I'm amused by it, just like everybody is, because it was something, but that doesn't mean I liked it. You can be amused by something that you don't like. And there was no reason for him to do that thing with the puck. I don't know what he was doing. Sometimes he obviously has an edge to him, and that can be really good when you're in a playoff series or, playing well and they're important games. But him doing that last night, it made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And then we don't even hear what was going on. He doesn't talk to the media.
No, then he punks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, then he punks out and he's unavailable for comment after the game. Now, he cleared it up today. But what about last night? You're at the centerpiece of that game. You got pulled because you sucked, and you threw yourself into the biggest story of the night, and then you're going to punk out and not talk? And I'll tell you why he didn't talk. Because he didn't want to face the Washington media there that was going to give him a hard time about the puck thing. Sorry. Doing it the day after is not good enough. If you're going to be this guy, then own it.
And that story got away from the team last night. I joked about this earlier today and last night on Twitter. That was the number one story on ESPN.com last night. So 2 things on that. First off, it takes away from an amazing accomplishment of Ovechkin. 900 goals. Nobody's ever done that. And the top story on ESPN is Binnington steals the 900 puck. So that's really crappy when it comes to how that story is covered when it's a great accomplishment for Ovechkin. And then just the fact that ESPN never talks about hockey. The top story, unless it's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, it's not the top headline on ESPN.com. And last night, Binnington is able to break through and make hockey the top story for a reason you don't want it to be. It's just, there's not a lot going right now.
No, and this is the time to sit down and be quiet. Play better and then be that guy again. You can't be that guy, the noise guy, the agitator, the funny guy. You can't be that when you stink. I don't think he's trying to steal it. I don't think this should be a congressional issue. He was just being Jordan Binnington. But that's not an excuse for throwing yourself into the middle of what should have just been an Alex Ovechkin story. Yeah. No player has ever scored 900 goals. There should be no other story attached to that thing other than that.
And to put in perspective how big of a story this is, I'm leaving the station last night at 8:05 as Sports Open Line had just gone done, and the national CBS News is on that goes at 8 o'clock, 8 to 8:03, and they didn't mention who the Capitals were playing. They didn't mention the score, but they said Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals has scored his 900th goal on top of the hour CBS News. This was a national news story that transcended sports. You gotta respect that moment.
Yeah, and we got a little bit more on the Blues to do coming up next. So hang tight, because at some point, this kind of thing continuing from year after year after year, something more has to change because they keep changing coaches, and that's not changing anything. That's not. Somebody's got to wear this. We'll talk about that next year on KMOX.
Traffic from the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
Well, we got a new crash. This one's westbound 44 at the Guy Road overpass. It looks like
Home water treatment systems. That's leafhome.com/free for your free home water test and 15% off. leafhome.com/free.
This is Rush Hour Sports on 104.1 FM KMOX.
Right, back in on Rush Hour Sports. Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here. Doing a little more hockey here, switching to baseball after the news at 5:30. So a couple things, Matt, as I continue to unload on the Blues, because I'm sick of this same stuff. I'm sick of hearing players and coaches say they don't compete. I want an explanation as to why they don't compete. I know they won't give it, because what it really is you got players that either don't care or don't know how. And either way, that doesn't work. And that means it comes down on Doug Armstrong, because he puts the team together. He gets all the credit for the Stanley Cup. He very much deserves that. And he gets the blame for right now. This might turn around, but this nonsense is ridiculous. And there's almost nothing you can do about it, because after saying we can't give a no trade clause to Alex Pietrangelo, they've given one to everyone else. Literally everyone else. But your franchise cornerstone defenseman.
You learn your lesson too much sometimes.
Now, I'll say this, though. This is a bit of a hot take thing because of the timing of it. Maybe trade Jordan Binnington. He's got a limited no trade. There are 14 teams he can refuse a trade to right now. He's got this year and next year under contract. The problem is if you do it, you're selling low, which I know what I'm saying is irrational. Okay. I know what I'm saying isn't going to happen. Okay. I know that. But if you're going to change something, you got to change something. You've got to make it clear that it's not just going to be, you're not going to get a coach fired every year and a half. You've got to change the roster, and you can't change it with the other guys without their permission.
Okay, so go find out if you can get their permission. I would rather sell low on Jordan Kyrou.
I don't want to sell low on a guy in his 20s who's a 30 or 40 goal scorer. Goalies are weird, and he's 32. I'm not sure Binnington's going to be here past next year.
All I know is between Curtis Joseph and Jordan Binnington, the Blues never really had a guy in goal that you could rely on for multiple years.
For a long period,
Yeah, so I'm pumping the brakes on the idea of moving on from Binnington. But yeah, I covered the Denver Nuggets when I worked in Colorado, and it was during the Carmelo Anthony era. And the knock on Melo was always, you can't win an NBA championship with Carmelo Anthony. He's going to go score a bunch of points. He's going to do a bunch of things, but he's just not a guy that you can win a championship with. And I never really totally agreed with that, but I also understood why people were saying that.
Yeah.
Are we getting into that territory with a Jordan Kyrou, where he is a super talented guy? He's going to go out. He's going to put up numbers. But, man, when you really, really need him to perform, I mean, there were moments in the postseason last year and down the stretch last year where you're looking at a guy who just is not there. Using your word from earlier, he's a passenger. You can't have that kind of guy as your front of the line guy and win championships.
But that's just one guy. I mean, Robert Thomas has been invisible too. He's got 13 shots on the season. Dude, you got to do something. You can't be passive all the time. You can't always be looking to give it to someone else, even if that's your strength. I mean, shoot the puck from time to time. It's Justin Falk who's been terrible, and Buchnevich has been terrible. And God love Braden Shen. He cares and he fights, but he's played like crap. And Colton Parayko looks like crap, and Cam Fowler looks like crap. I mean, like half the team looks like crap.
It's easier to name the guys that you actually feel good about. You feel good about this season. I can name them right now. I think Pius Suter has done a nice job.
Yep.
I think the two young guys, Dvorsky and Snuggerud, have done a nice job. Oscar Sundqvist has been fine. Broberg has been fine.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
Yeah, as far as going expectations, yes. Right,
Yeah.
like meeting Dvorsky, it's only been a few games, but yeah, he's young. He's going to take some. He's going to have some of that. Kyrou and Thomas, they're supposed to be past that stuff. And if I thought it was one guy, like I know Kyrou's getting benched now. If I'm sitting in Jim Montgomery's chair, the moment he comes back, one of these other guys is going out, and then it's Buchnevich's turn. And I don't think sitting a guy for one game sends any message other than I'm just making a show of this. Sit him for 3 or 4 games, and then sit another guy for 3 or 4 games until they start to show you what you need.
And Garland also mentioned Bukestad. And
he's been all right.
He's been fine too.
Based on expectations, yes. But those aren't the. To be clear, we're not talking about the bottom 6 guys. We're talking about the top guy, the guys that are supposed to be your top tier.
I think it would have been more impactful if they would have benched 3. You alluded to it earlier, but like take Buchnevich and Kyrou and whoever else.
You just don't have the
3 or
bodies
4 guys. Get them out, like figure it out, and really make a statement that way.
Absolutely. Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here. We're going to shift to baseball coming up after the news on KMOX.
You've got your whole life ahead of you, so choose a Medicare plan you can count on. And that's what you get with a Medicare Advantage plan from United Healthcare. With more than
Over 40 of the best decorated trees you'll ever see. Adult tickets are only $2 and kids under 12 are free. November 22nd through the 29th at the Moolah Shrine Center.
Rush Hour Sports continues on 104.1 FM, KMOX.
All right, Rush Hour Sports on KMOX. Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here till the top of the hour, changing from hockey to baseball, so a little bit more pleasant. Although,
yes,
considering the mediocrity of the Cardinals, it's not that much more pleasant, but it's certainly not worst in the league kind of bad. And also, not you don't have players and managers saying we're not trying hard enough. It's just not good. But we do have some Cardinals stuff. So we've got earlier today, just before the show, we got a list of some roster moves, and we'll get to those in a second. But we also have some news here just about, 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, just broke a few moments ago, and I think this was expected. It certainly is a well-deserved honor. Alec Burleson is the National League Silver Slugger Award winner for the utility position. Both he and Brendan Donovan were up for it. And, man, that's great for Burleson. He really took a step forward this past year, important part of this team, and just a really good guy. So I can't tell you how happy I am for Burleson winning the Silver Slugger Award.
Yeah, you're not going to be in the big awards, but you've got a Gold Glover at shortstop. You've now got Burleson with a Silver Slugger as a guy that is a multi-position player, which I'm glad they added, by the way, and I'm glad they added that for Gold Glove, too. I'm glad we are just kind of recognizing publicly that there are contributions beyond just star players. The guys who have, multi-position roles are pretty valuable, and they do help teams win. So I'm happy to see that be part of the picture. And then obviously the Cardinals, just to point this out, I just learned this from our buddy Ben Boyd, but Alec Burleson is going to jump on Gas House Gang tomorrow at 12:30. So
cool.
We'll get to hear from the Silver Slugger himself. And I believe tomorrow is Ranj and Claves, and you're in there, right? At the beginning of that show?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm generally in 12 to 12:30. So
yeah. Oh, that's right, because I pinched it for you last week.
Yeah. I will exit, and Burley will pop
There you go. All right, so that's coming up tomorrow. And then today we had a series of roster moves that the team announced. And again, these aren't blockbusters. This is just kind of procedural stuff. But one thing we knew, Matt, we knew that they had some work to clean up the 40-man roster because they do have quite a number of prospects that need to be added to the 40-man. They did not do all of that work today. But what we found out from the team is they did add infielder Brian Torres to the 40-man. Zach Thompson was outrighted and became a minor league free agent. Anthony Veneziano was outrighted, became a minor league free agent. Michael Ciani claimed on waivers by the Braves. Rodri Munoz claimed on waivers by the Reds. So you've got 4 spots that opened, 1 cleared. So total today, you cleared 3 spots on the 40-man.
You did, and still we're about 2 weeks out from the tender deadline. If they non-tender anybody, then that would be more 40-man spots that could potentially open up. But we'll see what there's a lot of moving parts here during the offseason. You have non-tenders. There'll be a point where you have to protect some guys to avoid Rule 5 draft.
Yeah.
There's going to be the opportunity to be involved in the Rule 5 draft, and you've got to have spots open on the 40-man roster. And then you just have to be able to go into free agency and have some flexibility there as well. So a lot of stuff going on, and I think this year there's going to be even a higher level of stuff to look at for the Cardinals.
And, look, I don't know. We were talking about this briefly at the beginning. I don't know that this means that Thompson and Veneziano are definitely gone. They're just off the roster right now. And I'm sure the team's preference would be a minor league contract so you don't have to use a 40-man spot for those guys.
That's what they did with Drew Rom a couple of years ago when he came off the 40-man roster. When you've invested, especially more so for Thompson than Veneziano.
Yeah, that's a first-round pick.
Right. But you've invested so much in his rehab process. Yeah. If at some point he's going to be a big leaguer that contributes once again, you would like to reap the benefits of everything that you have put into him in recent years.
Yeah, so and those guys probably aren't getting major league deals elsewhere. Just given the nature of their ups and downs the last couple of years. Thompson with injuries, Veneziano has been, the Cardinals got him by claiming him on waivers. So, it's not like he's been kind of a valuable trade piece or anything. So I don't think those guys are getting guaranteed major league deals. It'd just be a matter of whether or not they want a change of scenery or if the team really does want to bring him back. We don't know any of those things, but that's kind of where it is now. Interesting today, Matt, that we got the list of guys that got the qualifying offer. in free agency. And again, most of them are no-brainers. Bo Bichette, Framber Valdez, Dylan Cease, Ranger Suarez, Edwin Diaz. Let's see the other ones. Actually, those are the ones that are not surprising. There are a few, like the rest of them are interesting. Like Gleyber Torres was interesting. Not sure if he takes it or not. That could go either way. Brandon Woodruff with Milwaukee got the qualifying offer. Maybe smart for him to take it.
I would, and that's
$22 million.
Plus, he got a $10 million buyout, so that's
that's $32 million for this year. Yeah.
That's worth having the uncertainty of not having a multi-year deal in mind. Because what we talked about him the other day, what we thought that maybe on the free agent market he'd get like 2 years and 30. Was that the number?
It was 2 and 40, I think, was the projection. But that's not a guarantee that you're going to be there.
No, I think taking the 22 and being in a place that you're comfortable and you've already shown the ability to have success, and a team that also stuck with you during your injury. There's a lot of reasons for him to say yes to that. If I was advising Brandon Woodruff, I would probably say take the qualifying offer.
Zach Gallen got it, which I think he's going to take coming off of the bad year. I mean, he's probably looking at a 1-year bounce back contract anyway, so might as well do it with a team that you're familiar with. I would imagine he takes it. Shota Imanaga got it. I bet he takes it too, because I don't think he's going to beat that AAV in free agency.
I would take it.
Take the 22. Michael King of the Padres probably takes that, coming off a year with injuries. And then Trent Grisham. How about that? Like the path that guy followed. He had a great year this year. The path that he's followed is so fascinating, but he's got to take that, right? I mean, he's not necessarily, he's not going to get that AAV. And also now with all of those guys having that qualifying offer hanging over their heads, they're going to be a little less valuable in free agency.
Right, because you have to give up the draft pick compensation. So that's one way that, when you get the qualifying offer, like you said, it lowers value. So more and more guys, I think, are going to take it. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that nobody would take the qualifying offer and teams really didn't want to hand it to anybody.
Yeah.
And now we're at a point where you got to legitimately look at it. $22 million that's not a small amount of money.
No, especially for guys that if you're looking at a 3-year deal, they might be looking at 14 or 15 AAV. Well, if you take the 22 now, you can just make 10 AAV after that, and you're on the same deal, basically. So, and
I hate to just keep bringing up the labor negotiation. But that's the one thing in here that we don't know if there's going to be any major changes.
Correct.
A year plus from now. But I still think it's not going to be a big enough change that if you're Brandon Woodruff, you don't take 22 from the Brewers.
All right, last topic we're going to get to coming up after the short timeout. Albert Pujols passed over by the Padres in favor of Craig Stammen. And we're going to talk about why, right? Because I think there's a legit, easy to understand reason there. But I also think this offseason taught me something. I think maybe it taught me something about players of that magnitude and managerial jobs. And I'll explain what I mean coming up after the break here on KMOX.
The legendary Fast Eddie of Fast Eddie's Bon Air and Redbirds Hall of Famer Jason Isringhausen.
I'm Roger Brand in the Michael's Flooring Outlet.com Traffic Center.
This is Rush Hour Sports on 104.1 FM KMOX.
All right, Rush Hour Sports on KMOX. Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here. One other baseball story, Matt. We saw that the Padres hired Craig Stammen to be their manager, longtime major league reliever, not a closer, just kind of a middle relief guy for a long time. Has worked in the front office for the Padres under A.J. Preller the last couple of years. He was a guy whose name we did not hear. I was listening to MLB Network Radio today when the news broke, and it was Mike Farron and Jim Duquette, and they were both like stunned, like nobody heard that name. But in the modern world of what we know about modern baseball, that's probably more along the lines of the hires that we should expect. People that have direct connections to the presidents of baseball operations, to the front office, because one thing that the front offices value more than anything right now is synergy. And yes, I think that's going to work really big against Albert. And I would advise Albert to take a job in a front office somewhere. Do what Skip Schumacher did with the Texas Rangers. Do what some of these other guys, do what Gabe Kapler has done. Because I think your path to managing is going to be that. I don't think many teams are going to want to cede that much power to a celebrity manager.
I agree. And that's the world we're living in right now. And it's a guy who has, the player development background. So maybe that tells you something about the direction the Padres are going to be going as well when it comes to their major league roster and if they're going to continue to spend a lot of money. But you're right, that relationship between the president of baseball operations and the manager is so important. And you want to feel confident in that, especially when these president of baseball operations are basically their jobs are on the line. And yeah, he does work. Albert does work for the Angels, but I don't think there was what he wanted with the Angels, just with so much uncertainty moving forward.
Yeah.
But he's still locked in with the Angels for a while here moving forward.
Yeah, but personal services thing is not the same as being an assistant GM.
Right, but he's still pretty involved. He's at spring training. They're sending him down to the Dominican to work with guys at their complex there. The special assistants and a guy on a personal services contract, I don't think there's as much difference between those two as you're kind of alluding to.
Yeah, we got a message here. D. Vance said, so you got to know someone. Kinda. It's not so much about knowing it, right? Like everybody knows Albert, right? It's not like he's an unknown. But what front offices want, and I'm not saying this is good. I'm not making a value judgment on it. I'm just saying this is the reality of the day. They want a manager that will be in sync with them and will be on the same page. They don't want a power struggle. And while it may not look like there will be one, if one comes up with Craig Stammen, guess who wins? A.J. Preller. If it comes up with Albert Pujols, there's a doubt about who wins the power struggle.
Yeah, and so there's two things there. First off, it's just going in feeling like you're on the same page with somebody. Right. But then the other side of it is, if you do get sideways with somebody, you'd rather be sideways with somebody that 90% of baseball fans don't just immediately recognize
take their side, right?
Than Albert Pujols, who has literally nothing to lose and probably wouldn't back down.
And don't forget, the bigger the name, the bigger the contract.
That is also true.
Guy like Albert ain't going to work for what Craig Stammen works for, in my opinion. Just a thought. All right, buddy, have a good show. I know it's a short one. Sports Open Line after the news. 6:45. We got Billikens basketball. Have a great night, Matt.
You too.
It's Matt Pauley. I'm Kevin Wheeler. This is Rush Hour Sports on KMOX.
Your ambition just met its match with Robinhood. Trade
breezy, and it is cold. 42 will do it for the high on Sunday with a widespread hard freeze for everybody Sunday night into Monday morning. Temperatures 21 to 26 degrees. That's enough to do the hard freeze. From the Saliga Heating and Cooling Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Dave Murray on 104.1 FM, KMOX.
And at the moment, it's 58. The feels like is 52 downtown at the Arch. I'm Michael Calhoun, KMOX News.
Come on, let's get going now.
From KMOX Sports.
We're primed and ready. All day, baby. Man, let's go.
This is the Gray Bar Sports Open Live. Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. On 104.1 FM, KMOX.
On a Thursday night, we are underway with a Gray Bar Sports Open Line right here on KMOX. My name is Matt Pauley. Great to be with you this evening. We've got you only for about the next half hour or so. We will take you until just before 6:45. That's when our coverage of St. Louis University Billikens basketball will get started. Billikens in action tonight, looking for a 2-0 start to the year. They match up against Chicago State. A 7 o'clock tip-off over at Chaffetz Arena. If you're looking for something to do this evening, would encourage you to go check out the Billikens for yourself. But if you can't make it over there, you can listen in with Bob Ramsey and Earl Austin Jr. right here on KMOX. Always love being able to talk about that. We got a little hockey to talk about here in our limited time together tonight, and a little bit of baseball. Going to go back. I struggle. I struggle with a lot of things. One of the things I struggle with is I put together this show, Sports Open Line, and kind of have the idea of what I want to talk about. And invariably, it's the same things that we talked about during Rush Hour Sports when I am with Kevin Wheeler. And then I always have that moment of, well, do I want to talk about something different because we just talked about this an hour ago? Or, you know what, we've got a bit of a different audience here during Sports Open Line. So we're going to hit on some of the same stuff for sure tonight here on Sports Open Line because there's a couple things I want to get to. And I'm going to start with the St. Louis Blues. Another moment of honesty for you. When I'm putting together the show plan and when I want to talk about things, I avoid talking about the Blues as the Blues are playing. We try to, if they have a 7 o'clock start, we attempt to get all our Blues talk in during the 6 o'clock hour before the game actually gets started. Well, the Blues are going to start any minute now. They're going through the national anthem right now in Buffalo. That being said, I got a few things to say. And I was beyond disappointed with what I saw from this team last night. Non-competitive. That's the word I would use. Non-competitive against the Washington Capitals. And Braden Shin said as much in postgame when he had the most damning of the comments that were coming out of the locker room after the game, talking about basically a lack of effort from the team, his teammates. And people are lifting Braden Shin up for the honesty and saying it. Okay, I'm glad he said it. I'm glad he cares. He had a fight in yesterday's game. I think he was trying to, rile the team up. I appreciate that from Braden Shin. I'm not trying to sit here and put him down, but he's not producing either. This is a team right now that is simply not producing. And then they go out last night where they needed to continue the upward trend. I had been talking about it. Everybody in St. Louis had been talking about it for days, that it was looking better, that even in the 2 losses prior to the win going into yesterday's game, it was better. And then they got the win. And you thought, okay, maybe this is the moment where they turn around the season. And look, if they play well tonight, then you can sit there and say, well, 4 out of the last 5 games, they've played better hockey. They've won, maybe they've won a couple of them if they can win tonight. That is putting a positive spin on something that right now does not deserve a positive spin. It doesn't. And I'm so frustrated that I think one of the most damning things about this team, and it's not just this year, and it's not just the last 2 years, and it's not just it's going back to when it started to go bad under Craig Berube. You want to hear? Let me give you. I don't give sports gambling tips very often. That's not my thing. let me give you a sports gambling tip right now. If the Blues are trending in the right direction, if they're playing better hockey and they're about to play a team that's either terrible or has not won many games lately, take the other team. Because what we saw last night, we have seen time and time and time and time and time again, where everything seems to be going well for the Blues, and they've got an opportunity against a team that doesn't look very good coming in, and for whatever reason, they allow that team to look awesome. And that was the Washington Capitals. What were they? They were on a 4-game losing streak going into yesterday's game. On this very show yesterday, when I was talking about the importance of the game, I should have been saying, well, but you know what's going to happen? It's going to be the same thing as always. They're playing a team that comes in not looking great, so they're going to make that team look great. That is what it is. And this team should be better than this. The word that I've used it a lot, and then Kevin used it last hour. Kevin used it on the Dave Glover show. When you look at teams, there are people driving the bus, and there are passengers. I don't know who's driving the bus right now for the Blues. I don't know. I don't know if they have a bus driver. Maybe they don't, because I look at this team and I look at a bunch of passengers. I look at guys who, they're not bad hockey players. On paper, the roster looks really good, but who's going to really lead the way? I thought Jeremy Rutherford, he wrote in The Athletic today. He made a really good point in something he wrote. So there was, back on October 31st during practice, Luke Korak had tweeted a picture of Jim Montgomery having a lengthy conversation with Jordan Kyrou and Pavel Buchnevich. And after that practice, Montgomery was asked about that conversation. And he basically said that with where the team was at, those were two guys, Kyrou and Buchnevich, who really needed to lift their games, that they needed to do more, because Kyrou, his ability to shoot the puck and score goals is still very good, even though he hasn't done that a lot lately. I don't think we can question that part of his game. That's why you appreciate him so much. And in Jeremy Rutherford's story about this, in the 3 games since that conversation, where the coach comes to you and says, you have to lift your game, you got to do more, challenging him. You're getting challenged. And I always say this, like, when you get challenged by somebody, whether it's sports or something else, if my boss comes and challenges me to do something better in how I host shows, I either will or will not get better at that long term, but I will get better at it short term, because it's right there. It's top of mind. It's like in college basketball. Every year we get from the officials what the points of emphasis are going to be and the way that they officiate games. And those points of emphasis are always like just really, really front of mind. And you see all these calls in the first month and a half, 2 months of the season on those points of emphasis. And by the time you hit January, it just looks the same again. It's because of what's just been told to you. That's the way life is. If you are told something, if you are challenged, if something is brought to your attention, it's front of mind and you deal with it. So on October 31st, Jordan Kyrou is challenged by his coach, Jim Montgomery. And as Jeremy, I read from The Athletic, and you should subscribe to The Athletic because it's awesome. Jeremy Rutherford says, in the 3 games since that conversation, Jordan Kyrou has no points and a -1 rating with just 7 shots on goal. In that span, he's averaging 15 minutes and 10 seconds of ice time, which is 8th among forwards. He certainly didn't respond to that challenge, did he? He went the wrong direction. And guess what? He's sitting in the press box tonight. Jordan Kyrou is a healthy scratch. I know it's a big deal. Let's really use the word of what it is. It's embarrassing. If you are Jordan Kyrou, you should be embarrassed today. You should be the best player on this team. You're making money. You're on a big contract. You've got the no trade clause. You're supposed to be the top line winger. You're a guy who tends to lead the team in goals, and you are a healthy scratch after the team that you play for had a complete no-show the night before. You are the example of what went wrong yesterday. It's not good. It's not good right now for the St. Louis Blues. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to shift gears. We'll talk some baseball. Specifically, I want to get into this thing with Albert Pujols a little bit more. He doesn't get the Padres job. I think there's a lot going on there. We touched on some of it during Rush Hour Sports. We didn't get to another part of it. Bluntly, it's a part of it that I don't like talking about, but it is out there. So I want to get into it at least a little bit. We'll do that coming up in just a moment. Sports Open Line on KMOX.
Overhead Door Company of St. Louis, the genuine, the original.
.com/facts or a store near you. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
This is Molly Highland, daughter of Robert Highland. Congratulations, KMOX, the voice of St. Louis, on a century of service.
It's Great Bar Sports Open Line right here on KMOX. My name's Matt Pauley. Just keeping you updated on what's going on in the Blues game. They're matched up against the Buffalo Sabres. Tyler Tucker just got into a fight. That Braden Shin did that yesterday, right? Like I get that it's hockey and you're trying to pump everybody up, but I don't need to see a fight in terms of somebody punching somebody. Like, I enjoy that. I think fights have a place in hockey. Go be actually tough by playing tough hockey and scoring goals and winning games. Anyways, let's talk a little baseball here. And we got the news today that the San Diego Padres are not hiring Albert Pujols as their manager. And if you remember, Pujols had a 9.5-hour interview with the Padres. And when you heard that, you thought, man, that this has to be happening, right? Like this the only way this doesn't happen is if Pujols doesn't want the job, which I don't think is the case. And then we find out today that the Padres are going with Craig Stammen instead. And I think there's a lot of things in play here. And maybe I'll bring this back up tomorrow when we have a full 2-hour show, because even what we talked about during Rush Hour Sports and the time that I have right now, I don't know if I have enough time to totally get into what I think is leading to this. First off, the managerial position is different today than it was before. The Tony La Russas of the world, who basically had the biggest voice in the baseball operation as the field manager, that doesn't exist anymore. It is now the president of baseball operations. And the managers that are being hired are people that are going to be syncing up well with the president of baseball operations. And a lot of times people hear that and they say, well, that just means that the manager is a yes man. No, I don't think so. And we got a comment on the chat earlier with somebody saying that. I can't find it right now, but it was mentioned. It's not about being a yes man. It's more about being on the same page. You don't always have to agree. You can challenge each other, but you're not diametrically opposed. So, look, Oliver Marmol gets accused of being a yes man to John Mozeliak. And I think that is an incorrect characterization of Oliver Marmol. And I think there were a lot of things that he disagreed with Mo, but they knew how to handle that behind closed doors. And at the end of the day, Mo was still the boss. And that was respected by Ollie. And now Chaim's going to be the boss. But it's more about working together. And if you can avoid those situations, that's great. So there's obviously a comfort level with AJ Preller and Craig Stammen. That's the first thing. Padres have spent a lot of money. Anytime a guy gets hired to be the manager and you start hearing talk about their experience with player development, I start to wonder, okay, is this going to be the first step towards a team lowering payroll? And that could be what's happening in San Diego. It might not. This is where I get a little uncomfortable because I think there is one other thing that's playing out here that is important. And maybe you haven't been following along with this. This might not be the offseason to hire Albert Pujols. There is a civil trial going on right now that's connected to the death of Tyler Skaggs, the former Angels pitcher. And Sam Blum has done a fantastic job covering this. But the Pujols' name has been brought up a couple times in this. And if you want to win the press conference, you probably don't want questions about these things being asked, especially in Southern California. If he gets the job with the Padres, there's more of an opportunity for media to be knowing what's going on in the Skaggs trial. So, and I don't need to get into the Skaggs. Basically, there was a former employee of the Angels who provided the opioids that eventually resulted in the death of Skaggs, and the civil trial is going after the Angels as to whether or not they knew that the employee was using opioids and was providing it to players and that sort of thing. So that's where it's all based on. And there's been a fair amount of coverage of this. So something that came out yesterday. So I'll read from The Athletic. It said there was video of Kay. So Kay is the guy who is accused, who was providing the opioids to Tyler Skaggs. There's video of Kay swaying and speaking quickly, and then the other video was him taking a 90-mile-per-hour fastball to the knee as Albert Pujols egged him on. It was referred to as horseplay dares in exchange for money. So players were daring this PR guy, Kay, to do things for money, and then that money was being spent on drugs, reportedly, allegedly, according to everything that's going on. And there is video that shows Pujols instructing Kay to, quote, stand like this, boom, take it like a man. Not great. Mike Trout also went on, testified maybe a week ago or so. And again, I read from another story, said he was questioned about it, admitted to conducting dares in the clubhouse, some of which he said included then teammates Albert Pujols and Cole Calhoun. They involved Kay eating a popped pimple off of Trout's back, taking a 90-mile-per-hour fastball to the leg, taking a football thrown by Calhoun off the head while wearing a Philadelphia Eagles helmet, eating a bug off the clubhouse floor, and shaving his eyebrows. Trout said, quote, "I'm not proud of it." Trout said that all of those dares stopped when he was notified that the money that they were giving to this man was being used to fuel K's drug habit. I don't know how much of this is true. I don't know how much of it's not true. I think there's not been a ton of media coverage about this. I think all of us in St. Louis know the kind of guy that Albert Pujols is. He's a stand-up guy. He's great. The work he's done stands for itself. Some of the stuff might be taken out of context. Like, this is not me sitting here trying to go after Albert by any stretch of the mind, just reading some of the stuff that's come out in this trial that's been testified about. And I don't think this is going to have any sort of long-term implications when it comes to Albert Pujols. But if you are operating a baseball team in Southern California and this trial is taking place at the exact same time, and Pujols' name keeps getting brought up in some of these things that I just read that are gross and over the line, well, that's not how you win a press conference. That's not how you win a press conference. So I don't know if that plays into it or not. I don't. I have no clue. I have zero clue if that plays into it or not. But as I've seen this stuff coming out, I have thought to myself, these are not the questions the San Diego Padres want being asked during an introductory press conference. They're just not. So maybe this is one of those situations where Albert takes a year, goes and manages in the WBC this year, continues to do his work with the Angels, continues to do his work on MLB Network, and reassesses next year. There's a good chance that Angels job opening, that Angels managerial opening, will be open again a year from now. They only gave the guy a one-year deal. They've got a president of baseball operations, or a GM, whatever his title is, who's got 1 year left on his contract. It seems likely that if things don't go well for the Angels this upcoming season, they're going to make some more wholesale changes. So and he's still going to be an employee of that team, presumably here over the next over the next year. But there's a lot of things in play here, and there's also what Kevin and I talked about. If you are a president of baseball operations and you have a disagreement with a manager, you want to have a disagreement with a guy who doesn't have a name. You want to have a disagreement with somebody who's not a Hall of Famer. You go to battle with Albert Pujols, I don't know if you're winning that battle. You go to battle with Craig Stammen, with all due respect, you can probably win that battle, right? And there's the money side of it as well, especially as we come up. Yeah, there had been reports that Artie Moreno didn't want to give a manager more than a 1 year contract because he didn't want to be employing a manager during the lockout. Like, that's a good headline. That's a good first paragraph of a story. I don't completely buy it because logistically it doesn't make sense. If you sit there and say we're not going to employ a manager during the lockout, well, when are you hiring them then? Because what's likely to happen is around the time the pitchers and catchers would normally report, that's when the negotiations are really going to pick up hot and heavy. And about 2 weeks later, they're going to open up spring training, and they're going to have a quick spring training, and then maybe they'll start the season on time. Maybe they'll start the season a week late, but they'll still get 162 in. That's likely to what's going to happen next year. Where's the timeline to hire a manager there? Right? Like, that just, so the idea that they don't want to have a manager on payroll during the lockout, I don't buy that, because I don't think logistically you can pull off a managerial hiring in the time between a CBA being agreed upon and spring training starting probably 3 or 4 days later. It just doesn't make sense. But if the Angels are worried about how much they're paying a manager, well, I'm telling Albert Pujols is not going to go make what some of these first year kind of no-name type guys are making. All right, we're going to take one more break. We'll come back and we'll wrap up this part of the program and this part of the evening, and we'll get you to SLU basketball. We'll talk through some of those moves that the Cardinals did announce as well today. We'll do that all coming up in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. You are locked to a Gray Bar Sports Open Line right here on KMOX.
The voice of St. Louis is turning 100.
KMOX Radio.
It's Medicare coverage Missouri can count on.
Welcome back to the Gray Bar Sports Open Line. Once again, Matt Pauley on KMOX.
Back at it as we do continue on. Just a few minutes left. We got about 5 minutes left in the program, and then we're going to get out of here for SLU basketball. Billikens in action at home tonight at Chaffetz. They are going to match up against Chicago State. SLU 1-0. Chicago State is 0-1. And Chicago State is historically one of the worst Division I college basketball programs in the country. So hopefully SLU is able to take care of business tonight after a good first game a couple days ago. They're playing 3 games in the first 8 days of the season. They've also got a game coming up on Monday, which you'll also hear right here on KMOX, St. Louis's home for the Billikens. Quick note on what's going on in the Blues game. It is still scoreless between the Blues and the Sabres. Buffalo was on a power play. Looked like they had just about scored a goal, and a good save by Joel Hofer. So would be good if the Blues could come away with a win tonight. A couple notes from baseball before we do get out of here for the evening. First off, congratulations going on to Alec Burleson, who was named the Silver Slugger for National League for utility men. You know, I talked about this, I think it was yesterday on the show that I discussed, maybe it was 2 days ago, it doesn't matter when, about what was accomplished this season by the Cardinals. Because it was a season that, we said runway, right? Runway. It was the word, we never want to use the word runway again in terms of it being like applicable to the entire team. Where the most important part, you're always going to give guys runway, right? That's part of, if the Blues do not trade Nolan Gorman and they do trade Nolan Arenado, and you want to see Gorman as an everyday guy this year, well, that by definition is runway. Just because you find a guy or two that you're going to give an opportunity to doesn't make it a, quote unquote runway season. But that's what it was this past year. So there were a lot of things the team wanted to figure out. I think some of the things were figured out. Some of the things were not figured out. And it's what accomplishments did the team have, even in a year where they did not win enough games. And one of those accomplishments was a Gold Glove for Mason Wynn, and now another really nice honor for Alec Burleson as he wins the Silver Slugger. And I think this time last year, when we were in the offseason going into this past year, we looked at it and said, who is Alec Burleson? Is this a guy that you can count on as being an everyday guy? And there's also a difference between being an everyday guy and being a guy that you can build around. I'm, with all due respect to Alec Burleson, I don't look at this being a guy that you absolutely build around. It's a really nice piece, and you can win a lot of games with him in the lineup for sure. But like I've talked about before, if you take an Alec Burleson and put him on the Toronto Blue Jays, well, all of a sudden he's their 4th, 5th best hitter. Like the Cardinals need to add more talent at the top of the roster. That's what they really, really need to do. Doesn't take anything away from Alec Burleson being a really nice ball player. And it's a well-deserved honor for him being a Silver Slugger. But you learned something. You did this year for Alec Burleson, where he starts the season barely playing. There wasn't much of an opportunity for him when the season got started, and Oliver Marmol, to Ollie's credit, communicated with Burleson on what was going on. And Burley wasn't always happy about it. In fact, he wasn't happy that he wasn't getting as much playing time, but it was also expressed to him on what needed to occur and what was going to happen and what the pathway was towards him finally getting an opportunity. And then once he did get that opportunity, what is he going to do with it? And he got that opportunity, and he was very good enough to be the winner of this year's Silver Slugger as a utility man, because we saw him at first base. We saw him a lot in the outfield as well. So nice honor for him. You learn something about him. His, the righty-lefty splits weren't as much of a big deal as they were. That's part of why going into this past season, you didn't really know what you had, because you looked at what he did from a split standpoint, and you weren't sure if this was still an everyday guy. I think Burleson proved this year that you can count on him as being an everyday guy. Now, I say that also, if you listen to me very often, you know that I talk a lot about track record. And when I talk about track record, I talk about guys who do it for multiple years. 1 year is not a track record. So you can't 100% guarantee and count on Burleson for being that guy. But I think that was a good first step. And you go into the offseason and you go to the team next year and you look at it and you say, Alec Burleson's an everyday guy. Don't know what that's going to look like in terms of positioning, but he is an everyday guy. So those are the good stories coming out of the season. Mason Wynn being a Gold Glove Award winner, Alec Burleson winning a Silver Slugger. It wasn't all for nothing this past year. It just did not result in as many wins as you would like it to be. All right, that is it for the program today. Again, we've got Billikens basketball on the way next. Tonight they are matched up against Chicago State. 7 o'clock tip-off at Chaffetz Arena. Bob Ramsey, Earl Austin Jr., they've got the call of the game. It's the Billikens and Chicago State on the way next right here on KMOX.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis